These are the tools that are typically used to make a duck call. We'll start with the insert and then go to the barrel and kind of show which tools are used for each step and then how they're used. So the first thing you're going to do is you'll have a blank that we would use for our insert. And when I say insert, this is what I'm talking about. This is where the reed and the meets the tone board and really makes the sound of the call. That's what an insert is. So we would take a spurred center, put your blank of wood between the spur and a live center. A live center is a piece that goes in your lathe that spins. So you would put your insert blank between both and you would turn it to size. That's what you're doing there. Those are the tools you would use for that. Once you get it turned to size, what we're doing is we're turning this tenon down to 5/8. 5/8 is what will fit in your jig. Most standard jigs are 5/8. So we'll turn it down to a 5/8 and then we use our collet chuck. It's got a 5/8 collet in it. We'll put our insert into the collet chuck, tighten it down, and then we'll turn the final shape of the insert to whatever a shape we choose. Once that's done, you can use your Jacob's chuck, put this in your lathe with your drill bit and drill the tone channel. So most tone channels in a J-frame or 1/4 inch. There's different variations, but the majority of them are 1/4 inch. And we'll use that to drill the tone channel on the lathe. So those are the tools that are typically used for insert. I forgot to talk about the stepless drill bit. Once you drill your insert tone channel, you can use the stepless bit to really bore out the exhaust and you can get less back pressure, more volume, things like that. That's typically what the stepless bit is for. So those are really the tools it takes to make a insert. Once you get it turned to its final shape and you get everything drilled, you'll put the insert into a jig. This is a flat jig. So you'll put that insert in the flat jig and then you can put it on your bandsaw and cut the tone board and then do the final shaping to get the sound of a duck call. Once you kind of make your own sound, you can get a custom jig made, and that's what this is. And you can put that insert in and get pretty close straight off the jig by cutting it with your bandsaw and getting your sound. It'll take a little bit of work after that, but it gets you pretty close. And then obviously you've got files, so once you get it cut, you'll want to file it with your different files to get the piece of your wood insert down to the profile of the jig. And then you'll use a good pair of sharp scissors to trim your reed. So when you're trimming the reed length, you use the scissors and you take very small amounts off. So, you know, try to do like the thickness of a hair or something like that. And then you can use it to cut the dog ears of the reed. So that's typically the tools. And then you'll need a razor knife to cut your cork as well. So those are the tools it really takes to make an insert. When it comes to making a barrel, use a lot of the same tools. You'll take a barrel blank, put it in a 4-jaw chuck on your lathe and hold it. And then you would take your Jacob's chuck with the 5/8 drill bit and drill the insert, drill the blank 5/8 hole through it. Once you get that 5/8 hole, you can swap to your collet chuck and then use an expanding mandrel. That's what this is. As this screw is screwed deeper into the mandrel, it expands. This is a knurled mandrel you would use for wood. If you're using acrylic, you would want a smooth one. But you can put this in your 5/8 chuck, tighten it down, and it will hold your barrel so you can turn it. So just imagine that this is a square blank, not a finished. As it's spinning on the lathe, you would use your tools to turn it to shape. Those are the tools you would use to turn your barrel. And that's really it. I make my own bands, so I use a bandsaw and some brass pipe for that. May need a hammer to help set your bands. I've got a press I use. But that's typically what it takes to make a duck call, a very basic duck call. Doesn't include inlays or anything like that. You can do inlays with the same amount of tools I have here, but there may be a couple other specialty things. Like I said, I use more tools than this now, but that's more for efficiency per se, not necessarily the basics to make a duck call. And you can use a 4-jaw chuck instead of the collet to do everything here. I didn't get a collet chuck until probably after 2 years making duck calls. It's just a lot safer using a collet chuck to hold your insert and then hold your barrel versus holding using a 4-jaw. I used a 4-jaw for a while. You get really close to your knuckles most of the time, so it's just not as safe. Spend the money, get a collet chuck. It's worth every penny. Also speeds up your time to make calls as well. But that's really what it takes. I encourage most of these tools everybody has in their toolbox, except for maybe the turning tools and then the lathe tools. But you know, drill bits, measuring devices, files, scissors, razor knife, hammer. Most of you have all that. So you would just be buying the 4-jaw chuck, collet chuck, Jacob's chuck, and then your live center and your spur if you need that, and then a jig. There's several jigs out there. Public jig, it's going to get you close, and then you'll have to learn where to file to make duck calls, sound like a duck. But I recommend starting with the flat jig. You'll really learn the most starting with the flat jig and understanding where you take material off the insert affects the sound. So that's pretty much the tools it takes to make a duck call.